Welcome to a deep dive into the world of intuition, and more specifically, like how our estimations can be so wildly off sometimes thanks to something called the anchoring effect.
It's really fascinating stuff.
It is, yeah. And we're going to look at some research from Jeffrey Kramer by Vijay Marupudi, Reba, Koenen, Jimin, and Sashank Varma from the Georgia Tech School of Psychology.
Great group.
Yeah, they recently did a study that kind of revisited a classic experiment from way back in 1973.
Oh, wow. 1973.
Yeah, a long time ago.
So this is like, it's amazing how relevant this research from so long ago still is. You know, the original study by Tversky and Kahneman really highlighted how just like one initial piece of information, even if it's totally random, can become like an anchor that pulls our judgment in a certain direction.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
Like it could be anything.
It can be anything.
And it'll just like totally shift our thinking.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's pretty wild.
And this new study actually replicated that original experiment.
Really?
Which is something that hadn't been done before.
Wow.
So we get to see if those findings actually hold up in today's world. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they had people estimate the answer to 8 factorial?
8 factorial.
Yeah, so that's 8 times 7 times 6 and so on all the way down to 1.
Okay.
But they presented the problem in 2 different orders.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there was like descending order,
Okay.
starting with the 8,
Got it.
and then there was ascending order starting with the 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it seems like such a simple change, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the original study found that like the order had a huge impact on what people guessed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this new study confirmed that.
I mean, 50 years later.
50 years later, people who saw the problem in descending order still gave significantly higher estimates
That's amazing.
than those who saw it in ascending order.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That is wild. Yeah.
So what's even more interesting is that this new study used a within participants design.
So what does that mean within participants?
It means that each person actually did both versions of the problem.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they got to see it both ways.
I see.
So that's a really cool addition because it gives us more confidence that the effect isn't just due to, you know, like random chance or differences between groups of people.
Yeah. You're really controlling for those individual differences there.
Right, exactly.
That's really neat.
So we've established that the order of numbers really does matter when we're making estimations, like it really throws us off. But what I found particularly fascinating is that the researchers also tested whether something called calibration could help people improve their accuracy.
Oh, interesting calibration.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes this new study so valuable. They wanted to see if there was a way to like nudge people towards a more accurate estimate.
Right.
And they did that by showing participants the correct value for either 6 factorial or 10 factorial after they'd made their initial estimates.
Oh, so they basically gave them a point of reference.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey, just so you know, this is what a factorial actually looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they found that both of those calibrations did improve people's estimates for 8 factorial.
Okay.
But the 10 factorial calibration was much more effective.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. Seeing that 10 factorial is a huge number, over 3.6 million. You know, it really shifts people's like frame of reference.
Right.
It helped them adjust their estimates for 8 factorial upward, you know, more dramatically.
It's like saying, okay, if 10 factorial is that big, then 8 factorial must be pretty large too.
Exactly. The 10 factorial acted as a better upper bound signal, helping people kind of recalibrate their internal number line, so to speak. It's like giving your intuition a little nudge in the right direction.
Interesting. So does this mean we can train ourselves to be better estimators?
That's a great question. And it leads us into the next part of the study where they looked at individual differences.
Yeah, so they wanted to know, like, are some people just naturally better at resisting this anchoring effect?
Right. Are some people immune to it? Yeah, exactly. Do they have some kind of like superpower?
Right.
So they looked at 2 things. They looked at how good people were at basic arithmetic, you know, just like adding and subtracting.
Okay.
And they looked at how good people were at estimating the answers to more complex calculations.
So like if you're like a math whiz, you're less likely to fall for this anchoring trick.
That was the idea.
Okay.
And what they found is that like being really quick at arithmetic, like adding and subtracting, didn't really seem to matter that much.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but the ability to like make good estimations, that did seem to offer some protection against the anchoring effect.
At least in certain situations.
At least in certain situations.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Like if you're good at estimating in general, you're probably less reliant on that initial anchor to begin with.
Yeah.
Like you have a better sense of the overall scale.
Exactly. Yeah, you kind of have a better intuition for like the order of magnitude.
Right.
So it suggests that, like, if you want to be less susceptible to anchoring, maybe work on your estimation skills.
Right.
Like practice making quick judgments about sizes and quantities.
So it's like a skill you can develop.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This whole idea of calibration is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Is that something we can like actively practice and get better at?
I think so, yeah. I mean, the researchers showed that even just like a brief exposure to the correct value for like a larger factorial helped people adjust their estimations.
Right.
It's like giving your brain like a reference point,
Yeah, like a new anchor to work from.
Exactly, yeah, like a better anchor.
Okay, so it's not just about being aware of the anchoring effect, but also about actively trying to recalibrate our intuition.
I think that's a great way to put it, yeah.
Okay, cool. So how do we do that?
Well, I think there are a few things we can do. One is to consciously seek out like multiple perspectives and sources of information.
Okay.
Don't just rely on that first piece of data that comes your way.
Right.
Challenge your assumptions. Look for evidence that might contradict your initial impression.
It's like getting a second opinion from a doctor.
Exactly. Or doing your research before making a big purchase.
Right. Don't just go with your gut feeling, get some more data points.
Yeah, exactly. And another key is to be willing to adjust your estimations upwards. Sometimes dramatically, we tend to underestimate the magnitude of things.
Right.
Especially when dealing with like large numbers or complex problems.
Yeah.
So push yourself to think bigger, to consider the full range of possibilities.
So it sounds like a lot of this comes down to being more mindful and deliberate in our thinking.
Yeah.
Like we need to slow down, question our assumptions, and really try to calibrate our intuition to the situation at hand.
I think that's a great takeaway. Yeah, we live in a world where we're constantly like bombarded with information.
Right.
And asked to make like quick decisions.
Yeah, we have to be on our toes.
But understanding the anchoring effect and knowing how to counter it can help us navigate that world more effectively.
It's like having a superpower, right?
It kind of is, yeah.
Like being able to recognize those mental anchors and adjust our thinking accordingly.
Exactly.
Okay, so what does this all mean for our everyday lives? Like where might we be encountering anchoring without even realizing it?
Oh, it's everywhere. Think about like negotiating a salary.
Okay.
That first offer you receive, even if it's ridiculously low, can act as an anchor and influence your counteroffer.
That's a great example, yeah.
Yeah. Or what about estimating how long a project will take?
Oh, yeah, totally.
If your initial guess is overly optimistic, you might end up like severely underestimating the time and resources required.
Right.
Anchoring can also show up in things like setting a budget, making investment decisions, even choosing what to order at a restaurant.
Really, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
So in a way, this isn't just about numbers and estimations.
No.
It's about how we approach decision-making in general.
I think so.
Yeah, we need to be aware of the potential for anchoring bias and take steps to mitigate its influence.
Absolutely. And the good news is just being aware of the effect can make a big difference.
Really?
Yeah, once you start looking for it, you'll be amazed at how often it pops up.
It's like a secret code has been cracked.
Exactly.
Suddenly you see anchoring everywhere.
Yeah.
So this deep dive wasn't just about a math problem. It was about understanding the inner workings of our minds.
Yes.
And how they could be subtly influenced by seemingly irrelevant information.
Absolutely. And the really cool part is now that we have this knowledge, we can use it to our advantage. We can start to calibrate our intuition, make more informed decisions, and ultimately become more rational thinkers.
Wow, it feels like we've uncovered like a whole hidden layer of how our minds work.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff. And, it's not so much a cheat code as it is like a user manual, Right. We're not like eliminating these biases. They're just part of how we process information. But by understanding them, I think we can be more conscious users of our own brains.
That's a good point. And that conscious awareness is really what struck me most about the research we've been talking about. It's not just about the numbers, it's about how even like simple things like the order of information we see can have such a big impact.
Totally. Yeah. And, this research team, Jeffrey Kramer by Vijay, Marupudi, Reba, Koenen, Jimin, and Sashank, Varma from Georgia Tech, their work really highlights the importance of replication. It's one thing to find like a cool effect, but having it confirmed 50 years later with a more modern design adds a whole new level of confidence.
Right. And they didn't just replicate it. They added those clever calibration techniques.
Yeah.
Like showing people that larger factorial to really shift their thinking.
Yeah.
That's something we can all kind of apply in our lives.
Totally. It's such a practical takeaway,
Yeah.
So next time you're like facing a decision where estimation is involved, think about how you might calibrate your intuition.
Right.
Is there a way to get a sense of like the larger scale to avoid getting anchored by the first piece of information that you come across?
So it's about proactively seeking out those reference points.
Yeah.
Those mental anchors that can guide us toward a more accurate assessment.
Exactly. And remember, like the more complex the decision,
Yeah.
the more importance this becomes, whether it's a financial decision or a project timeline, or even just choosing between options, like being aware of anchoring can help us avoid some pretty costly mistakes.
This deep dive has truly been an eye-opener. It's amazing how, like, a seemingly simple math problem can reveal so much about human cognition and decision-making.
Totally. It's like a window into our minds.
It really is.
And for all of us, the challenge now is to take these insights and actually apply them to our own lives to become more aware of those subtle forces that are shaping our judgments.
Yeah.
And to use that awareness to make choices that are more informed, more rational, and ultimately more aligned with our goals.
So until our next deep dive, keep those minds curious and those anchors in check.